Welcome to another episode of Neil Wolf News. I'm your host, Neil Wolf. This is part one of a three-part interview series that I'm doing with my friend Bud Johnston from Pipestone, Minnesota, which is the home of the sacred quarry where Native people have gone for thousands of years to gather the most soft and usable stone for making their pipes. In this episode, we're going to talk about what brought Bud from the Bad River Reservation along the shore of Lake Superior in northern Wisconsin to Pipestone, as well as talking about what it took for him to start his nonprofit organization, the Keepers of the Sacred Tradition of Pipemakers, and to start a Native American church. So let's get right into this. So I'm glad that I have an old friend from Pipestone on the show today. This is Bud Johnston of the Keepers of the Sacred Tradition of the Pipemaker, and we're going to be talking about his organization as well as the National Monument in Pipestone and the significance of that site. So welcome to the show, Bud.
Good afternoon or morning, wherever you're at.
Yeah, I'm here in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
It's pretty early yet there.
Yeah, we're getting started a little past 10 o'clock here, 11 o'clock your time, and you're in Pipestone, is that right?
Yeah, I'm sitting at our kitchen at the depot, the old Rock Island train station. There was quite a story on how we got this building a long time ago.
Oh, we'll see if we get into that today. The place I thought we'd start is just a little bit about your background and where you come from.
Yeah, I grew up in Ashland, Wisconsin, 2 blocks from Lake Superior, and I'm an enrolled tribal member at the Bad River Band of Lake Superior Chippewas is our federal name. That's 8 miles from Ashland. I spent a lot of time on the res with Grandma and Grandpa and my uncle Bazil Dakota. But I was really always very interested in our tribal connections and the lake. I started swimming as soon as the ice would start to break up. We'd have a contest to see who was stupid enough to swim between the docks, between the ice chunks.
And so I was refreshing my memory on some of the stories you've told, and I found one of your storytelling videos that it was interesting evolution for you to even know what to call yourself.
Yeah. Well, I just call myself a storyteller.
How about the tribe you come from? You said first it was Chippewa.
Yeah, I do that when I do schools. I tell the kids that when I was a little kid, I was a Bad River Chippewa. And when I got to be a teenager, somebody told me, oh, the white man gave us that name. We're really Ojibwe. Well, I was Ojibwe. Till I was about 35 years old. I did the grand opening for the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., or in New York. And I was working with the Indian Center in Manhattan. And I got up there, and this guy's running around introducing me as an Anishinaabe brother. Boy, I never heard that before. He was going to show me where my hotel was, and we're walking down the street. And I said, hey, Clint, what's this Anishinaabe thing? Oh, that's the real name of our people. Ojibwe is our language, and the white man named us Chippewas. So when I talk to little kids, I tell them when I was a little kid, I was a Chippewa. As a teenager, I was Ojibwe. As an old man, I'm Anishinaabe. And all that means is the people. And for all the tribes, if you go back to their old indigenous name, it just means first people, the people, principal people. Like Telagi is Cherokee, and that means principal people.
Okay.
But their old names really just meant the people. Just like our village at Bad River is Odena. And like I said, I always wanted to know the Indian stuff. And I was asking Grandma one time, Grandma, does Odena mean something? She said, the village. Said, yeah, the village of Odena. Does it mean something? It just means the village. And you're supposed to say Odena, not Odena. Oh, okay. So that's all it means is the village.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
So the next question I have is, what was it that brought you to Pipestone? How did you get called to that place?
Well, that was kind of a long story. In 1976, I think it was, I moved to San Francisco. I worked for the airlines for 37 years, so I transferred around. And when I got to San Francisco, I found out there was an Indian center in San Francisco that was mostly Sioux people. And there was another one in Oakland, California, across the bay, that was mostly Ojibwe. And I thought, well, gee, why don't we start another one down here in Fremont? So we started an Indian center in Fremont, and that took off with a lot of people. So then we started one in San Jose. So around the Bay Area, we had 4 Indian centers. So we decided, well, what if we start learning some drum songs and the kids learn to play the drum and make some dance outfits. And then every weekend we can have a mini powwow at one of the Indian centers. So we got that going and it was going really well. And this old Sioux guy was teaching our kids drum songs and he died. And in the ways of our people, your spirit sticks around for a year. So you're supposed to do a wiping of the tears to send that spirit home. And we were doing a sobriety powwow at San Jose. And that was about a year after he died. So I went to our board and I said, hey, how about if we do that wiping of the tears at the powwow and advertise it? Oh, that'd be great. How do you do it? So I don't know. So we decided that we'd have an honor song for his family, have them come out, take a lap, and have everybody join them that wanted to, and have a really big giveaway because the size of the giveaway shows how important something was to you. So we got the gymnasium book down there and we advertised it all over the Bay Area. And a lot of people showed up because this guy worked at all 4 Indian centers teaching drum songs. And when we did the honor song, so many people wanted to dance, they couldn't get on the gym floor. So they're standing in the bleachers keeping time to the drum. And had a big giveaway. And this gal was supposed to do pipe ceremony. And she came up and she said, but I don't have a pipe. I said, geez. So I got on the PA system and asked if anybody had a pipe we could use to do this pipe ceremony. Out of probably 1,000 people, nobody had a pipe.
Wow.
So we sent a spirit with a cigarette, which is okay. The smoke is a vehicle for the prayer, but it looked kind of dorky. And I mumbled to myself, if I ever got back around Pipestone, I'd make pipes available to whoever needs them. And life went on. You know, I worked there for 4 or 5 years. And then I transferred to Spokane, Washington. And I was up there for 4 or 5 years. And I had to get back full time because I was part time in Spokane. And they said we're going to start flying to Wichita, Kansas. And I needed to get back full time. So I took the transfer to Wichita. And I got down there. The manager didn't like me. I didn't like Wichita. It was bad. I mean, I'd never worked a ticket counter in my life. And all they had was a ticket counter. And she was mad at me because I didn't know how to do it. You know, I had a bunch of notes in my pocket. How do I do this? But got through that. And they put a notice on the bulletin board that we were going to start flying to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I didn't know where it was and didn't care. Just get me out of Wichita. So I put in a transfer for Sioux Falls. And the very first week we were open, this guy came up with what I call a whiskey bag, the tall, skinny paper bag that you hide a bottle in.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a pipe stem sticking out of it. I said, what you got in that bag? He said, a pipe. I said, where'd you get that? He said, Pipestone. I said, where's Pipestone from here? He said, about 60 miles up the road. I said, geez, I'm here. This was 1924. So I went out and I got a quarry permit, started making pipes, asked the guys how to do it. And I rented one of those 4x4 display cases at the airport, put a couple pipes in it, made a catalog, and that was what got me started on this. And then I found out there was this group, actually 2 different groups, that were trying to throw the Park Service out of the monument. And we never heard nothing about it because there's no tribe here. And when we found out about it, we tried getting together. We had about 35 of us carving pipestone. And we thought, well, we better call the people in DC and see what the heck's going on. Well, that didn't work. You call up these political people. And the first thing they know is, who are you? And then who do you represent?
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of pipe makers in Pipestone. That didn't get you nowhere.
Right.
Well, we decided when I was in San Francisco, we formed a federally recognized urban Indian community. So I thought we could do that again. Well, you couldn't do that because all the other tribes didn't want no more Indians because the BIA funding is X number of bucks. And if I'm going to give some of it away, my money is going to go down. Back and forth about that. And we decided, well, what if we instead form a Native American church with the quarries as our sanctuary? And so we voted to do that. And I filed all the paperwork with Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, which was our IRS office, or the feds anyway. And they didn't even open the packet because the label on the cover was the Keepers of the Sacred Tradition of Pipemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Wrote me a letter and sent it back with the packet and said, I'm not going to let a bunch of plumbers be a church. We were pipe fitters.
Right, right.
I was kind of frustrated. So I wound up sending it all to Cincinnati, Ohio, which was another IRS office. And that lady called me up. I mean, this is 2 years monking around. And she said, you have ordained ministers. I said, no, we have spiritual people that have a gift. Do you have weekly ceremonies? No, we do ceremonies when you need. Well, that don't fit the criteria. She hung up on me. So I was pretty frustrated. So I wound up putting it all together again and sent it to Chicago, which was the regional office. And this guy calls me up. And he asked the same dumb questions. And I gave him the same dumb answers. But toward the end of the conversation, he said, I really hate to sound ignorant, but have your people been using those pipes very long? And I said, not more than 3,000 or 4,000 years. And he just said, oh. And about 6 months later, we got this big document with a funny number code on the top of it. And I wondered what the heck that was. So I called the IRS and asked them what the heck that meant. And they said, that designates you as a federally recognized church. Wow. And what accidentally happened, like I said, we formed this organization to protect the clothes for all tribal people and educate the public. But because we're the only federally recognized Native American church in the United States, you can go into any jail or any prison 24 hours a day and work with the inmates. And just a couple months after we got I don't know why, federal recognition, an inmate from the Missouri prisons called me, wrote me a letter, and he wanted to build a sweat lodge in the yard at the prison. And I wrote him back, and and he wanted to put a raven skull out in the yard. A raven was one of his helpers. And I wrote him back and I said, we don't get into personal totems because that could bury you. But if you want to give me the name and the phone number of your chaplain, I'll call the guy up or talk to him. So he wrote me back. He gave me the name of the chaplain. And I called this guy up. And the phone call lasted maybe 4 or 5 seconds. I told him who we were and what we're doing. And he said, what kind of church you say we're? I said, Native American. I don't have to talk to you. You practice witchcraft. And he hung up on me. Pissed me off. So I called the warden. Told him who we were and what we're doing. He said, oh, we've been looking for somebody like you. I'll have our chaplain call you. So the same guy had to call me back. And we now have over 15 pipes in the Missouri prison system and sweat lodges.
Awesome.
And over the years, we've donated over 180 pipes to prisons nationwide. And we go inside the walls and help them build sweat lodges. And for 3 or 4 years, I went inside the South Dakota pen every week and did pipe ceremonies with the inmates.
Great.
And it really seems to touch their hearts.
Sure does.
In South Dakota pen, if you want to hear another little story, it was amazing to me. The cultural concerns coordinator and I would rotate which floor we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth floor was the nastiest guys. And they kind of pissed me off. Because normally when you do a pipe ceremony, wherever the pipe goes out, it's done. You just touch it to the other people and put it away.
Yep.
Not before. They reloaded it because they wanted to smoke.
Right.
And the New Year's Day one year, Mary and I were going in, and I said, I'm going to do fourth floor, and we're not going to do a pipe. You're not going to do a pipe on fourth floor? I said, that's right. Well, that was a feather. So I went up on fourth floor, and about 25 or 30 inmates come in. I sat down in a big circle. I said, today's the first day of the new year. We're not going to do a pipe today. All your relatives that have gone to the other side, your moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, aunts and uncles, they're looking down on you. And they want to know what happened. Why are you in this prison? We're going to talk about that. I passed that feather. Before it got past a half a dozen guys, they were starting to cry.
Yep.
And before it got around the room, it was really wet. Finished up. And normally when we got done, we went down and got our stuff out of our locker and went home. I got down in the lobby, and the cultural concerns coordinator is still sitting there. I said, Mary, what are you doing here? I was waiting to see if you were still alive after not doing a pipe on fourth floor. I told her all the guys were crying. She said, all the guys on fourth floor were crying? She was amazed. And the next week I decided to do fourth floor again, because when an inmate has something on you, they'll use that as a lever to get more stuff for themselves. So I wondered how the guys did after we did that talk, because a lot of guys talked about stuff they never talk about. And same bunch of guys came in, and they were all still fine. So they evidently felt that those things they talked about were very private for that whole group. And it kind of amazed me. I was pretty impressed. But that's the kind of stuff you can do. I call it touching people's hearts.
So there's another aspect to this I saw in a video. You've got a personal calling to be the bridge between 7 previous generations and the 7 future generations to continue the tradition of the ceremonial pipe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a huge need today. And one of the things that we used to have a hard time with, it's gotten a lot better. One of the Sioux prophecies is that the world will be united over the pipe. Well, if we think about that, you know, the medicine wheel, we normally have red, white, yellow, and black. Many people believe that represents the 4 colors of man.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not going to let you be part of a pipe ceremony because you don't have a tribal ID, or you got blonde hair or blue eyes or whatever, then
Native quotient.
Yeah, then that pipe is never going to unite the world. And when we go out and do talks, you really, I do anyway, push the idea that, number one, we're all related. And that don't just mean the people. That means the water, the trees, the grass, the plants, the stones. And if you want to have this world as we know it for at least 7 more generations, you have to teach that respect and teach walking the red road, we call it, to these people who really care. And for me, it has become a big, big thing. Late last summer, I had a lady come in the back door of the depot here, and she said, "Oh, it's you." And I thought, "Oh, what'd I do this time?" She said, "You probably don't remember me, but I was in prison, and you used to come in and do pipe ceremonies every week. And one day you were doing a pipe ceremony, and you told all of us to make sure that we said a prayer when the pipe came to us. And the pipe came to me, and I prayed that I could get out of prison. And within minutes, the warden came in and he said, 'You've been released. Get your stuff out of the cell and get out of here.' She went and unloaded her cell and got outside the walls. And she said, after I got outside, I thought, gee, I should have given Bud a hug before I left. Can I give you a hug now?" This is like 5 years later. She's been sober for 5 years, got a job, got a fella. It changed her life.
Awesome.
And that really touches me, when you feel like you really truly connected with somebody. The same thing happened a long time ago. I don't like the word shaman, and a lot of people like to use that word. And this lady came in the store here. She was talking to our gal at the cash register, and she was looking for a shaman. And she kept using that word. And
Yep.
I was in the office doing my thing. And finally, this old gal at the checkout said, Bud, you better come talk to this lady. So I came out and asked her what she was looking for. And she told me her husband was a meth freak and he was in jail and he wanted to give up his life for the right to use meth in the privacy of his own home. And she wanted somebody to go talk to him. And he was about 150 miles north of here. We talked for a long time, and I said, maybe we can find somebody who can do that. She said, no, I think it's you. And I thought, oh, geez. She said, I'll give you some gas money if you go up and talk to him. So I went up there, and I called the jail first and told the guy who we were and what we're doing. And he said, well, bring your paperwork to prove that you're legally a church, and you can talk to him as long as you want. So I went up there. He gave us a private room, no cameras, no nothing. And we're talking, and I mean, this guy was out there. But some of his dreams fit some of our creation and origin stories. And so we were talking for a long time, maybe an hour and a half. And the warden came in. And the inmate says, oh, please, don't let him go. We're really getting into some good stuff. The warden says, no, he can talk as long as he wants. I just was checking to make sure you're okay. But we talked for quite some time and got done, and I left and came back down here. And about a week later, the wife shows up and she gave me some money for gas. And she said, you really touched my husband's life. He copped a plea and he'll be out in 5 years. Thank you so much for helping him. And about 3 years ago, I was doing the Brookings Art Festival up in Brookings, South Dakota. And I was busy talking to people, and this one lady come around and she said, do you remember me? And I said, yeah, I think you were the gal who had a husband in jail, wanted me to go talk to him a long time ago. He said, yep, I just saw you here and I wanted to say hi and say thank you again. And out in the back of the crowd, there was a guy out there. He raises his hand. He says, hey, remember me? I said, not really. He said, I was that inmate you came and talked to 10 years ago. And I just wanted to say thanks. And again, you never know where it's going to go. You know, share a couple minutes with somebody and it might change their life. And it makes me feel good. But it keeps us awful busy.
So you said you run your organization out of the depot there on 4th and Hiawatha, right in Pipestone. How many people are the officers of your organization?
Oh, we only got 4 of us. I'm the chairman. Nobody else wanted the job. My wife is the cashier and treasurer, and our vice president's Leon Carney, and another gal named Heidi's our new supposedly cashier. But we're definitely about out of volunteers. It'd be nice if we had more people participating, but it keeps us busy.
I'm sure it does.
And we don't have anybody that's salaried or gets paid.
Okay.
Volunteers. And I think that's a big, big thing. So many nonprofits have elite staff that get a great big paycheck. And, you know, if that works for them, that's fine. But that's never been anything we've done here. We've actually contracted with a few people to write grants. And so it was about as far as paying anybody.
Stay tuned for part 2 in this 3-part series, where Bud and I are going to discuss the origins of the pipe and how it was gifted to his people, as well as how to do a pipe ceremony. So if you like content like this, follow us on social media at Neowolf News. And I'm on Brighteon, Bitchute, Rumble, and YouTube, as well as Gab, Twitter, Facebook, and Parler now that Parler's back. Thanks for tuning into this episode, and we'll see you again soon.